shot a man while robbing his castle. Bobby Sue took the money and run. Go on, take 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 the money and run.
Steve Miller Band, Take the Money and Run. It's Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having a great day. Well, the significance to that song, for those of you that have been paying attention, playing at home, listening closely, got it. So the offer came in today, verbal anyway. Tomorrow is going to be official. And so, big deal. I wish I could get into the specifics of how awesome this whole situation is in the big picture, but I will never be able to talk about that because it's a bad idea to do so. Needless to say, the specifics are very good, so I was proud of myself. It was a good job. Yay. And start my stand-up class tonight, so I'm trying to get this one cut out pretty quick, but it's my first class. Yay! So I'll be doing my first stand-up gig, I think in 6 weeks, something like that. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, somewhere around there. Anyway, our effect on the big picture. I read about this today, and I really, it's just funny. I have been following this kind of thought process, certainly from The Secret, but way before that. But I mean, The Secret was one of the most major big things that came out that I really felt like caught everybody by storm, that really brought a pretty good, really good message to the larger audience. And really, it took a foothold. This whole set of teachings never bring it up. I've not heard Esther Hicks bring it up, with the exception of a couple authors, very few. Actually, yeah, only one, really. Hardly anyone's really ever brought this up. And I wonder why. I honestly, truly think it has more to do with the fact that certain books probably would not have gotten published in the past. Those times have changed. Things have shifted. There was a point in time where our realities basically took a direction that was different than it was initially planned. I don't want. I'd love to do a show on it. Believe me, I would love to do a show on all that crazy. But leaving all that out, I want to at least mention this. I know other people do, but there's very few. Art Bell, one radio guy, he did a radio show, I think twice, on 2 occasions, and I'll get into an example of that as well. But the effects we have as individuals on the bigger picture. And I talked about this recently, this guy Cobra, he's done a couple world meditations where he's literally managed to get millions, well, not millions, hundreds of thousands, I want to say, but I think we broke 1 million a few times, which was way more than we needed. But 1 million plus people to meditate at the same time for the same basic purpose. And the power that came from that was phenomenal. So, of course, our law of attraction understanding, we know what we think, what we say, what we do affects our own lives for sure. And we talk about, you know, walking around. If you're trying to get love into your life, you walk around and give love. One of the greatest ways that you can truly give love without, like, having to be ridiculous where you walk around and talk to people is to kind of go bigger picture. Maybe start to realize that maybe your neighborhood that you live in, the place where your houses are or whatever, like your local village, your city, whatever your little local area is. Maybe you imagine a lot of people, most everybody or everybody in your area, like being happy, like just smiling, like this is like a really awesome place to live. Like this is a great area where we're at. Whatever it takes to get into that kind of mindset of trying to feel or see people just being generally happy. Like maybe something cool happens, or, you know, if you're in a small neighborhood, maybe the ice cream truck driving through and just the way kids get crazy. I don't know. It was when I was younger. I don't know if it still happens. Ice creams are probably like, you know, $18 a piece now versus back when I was younger. But needless to say, the power that we can have by sending love to a larger audience, and we talked about the multiplier effect in one show, for those of you that pay attention, but it's rare, right? But the multiplier, the more people that you're sending out good vibes for, the more power, and you shouldn't do it for these reasons, but it's the reality of how it plays out. So if I send out, you know, love to 1,000 people, that's actually a lot of love that comes back as the whole reciprocal. What you send out comes back, and it comes back multiplied, because sending love out to other people and them actually experiencing that love and then somehow doing something, maybe unknowingly, maybe knowingly, positive in other people's lives, to other people's lives, to other people's lives, to other people's lives, and it comes back and affects us in a very ripple-like fashion. So when we talk about doing things from a larger perspective, sometimes that's a way we can do it. But I also bring this up, and this is really one of the key things I've been working on since 23-ish, maybe. I mean, seriously working on it. I was into the spiritual stuff prior to that even, but where I was very consciously trying to interact with the planet, with the people. Like I said in a couple shows, I don't expect anyone to remember any of this stuff, but I do say weird things every once in a while about what I've done in my past and my background. But I was very involved with clearing karma for the planet, for everybody. And it was something I did intentionally, and I did it with happiness, and I did it to make a difference. And so I've been working hard to try to make a difference for a number of years, right? And what's super important for all of us to realize, especially as we're getting the law of attraction, especially as we're learning more and more about how our thoughts affect our realities, it's important to realize that your thoughts also affect your larger reality. And you can think outside of just your local self. Maybe you've done a lot of imaginal work and you're like, well, what can I think of? I'm tired of thinking about this. So I want to think about something that actually does benefit me or benefits the world or benefits someone, right? Mom and dad. I mean, you can just think it really even still micro and just think of a few other people and try to send love to them. It still works. It's still multiplied. But again, the more people you're doing it with, the larger the effect. It's just not that you should be doing it for that reason. You should be doing it because sending love to people is groovy. And if you can kind of make that sort of difference, you realize by loving another, I'm loving myself. Like there is the whole, what I send out comes back to me. So I realize this is what I'm sending out. This is a great way to create wonderful environment for the other people, and also send this great experience back to myself. But the important thing to also get from a larger perspective is when you're sending love to 1,000 people. And those 1,000 people do good things to other people. That ripple thing I was talking about, right? You've now affected a multiplied on top of your multiply. So that ripple effect, say each of the 1,000 people says something nice to one other, then that person says something nice to one other, then that person says something nice to one other, and then it kind of comes back, right? So that one nicety maybe went out another 6 degrees, right? Well, that same guy that you rain love down, he might have been nice to 5 people that did 5 things, a ding, 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 ding. So that 1,000 people becomes times 7, times 8, times 10. It now becomes 10,000 people that you affected by loving 1,000. And you start to change the reality around where these 10,000 people live because they each felt that same level and amount of love and compassion that, you know, each other felt, right? Each of them got the same dose of it, but it still affected them in a very profound way. And on top of that, we can help shape our worlds. We can shape our cities, we can shape our environments, our states, our countries, or whatever, and try to bring better things on the planets, like I've talked about with these wonderful these meditations that happen, that have been a part of 2 of them. And I know there's another bigger one coming up. And that's where I got this meditation I'm going to do for this weekend. That's pretty cool. And it's about the goddess energy, by the way. So all you ladies, it's a good one. And it's really about trying to get the energies right where we're at right now. We're in a really interesting period as these energies are colliding and mixing and changing. And this really helps smooth that process out. Now, one thing I read, and this is in Neil Donald Walsh's, this is the one I've been reading, Conversations with God, Awaken the Species. I only have like 20 minutes a day I even get to read typically. So it's a great book, loving it, just absolutely loving it. But something he brings up is from this physicist, this John Hagelin, I guess is how you would say this. He's a renowned quantum physicist, science and public policy expert, educator, and author. And he offers this from his online reading. So this is a quote from his online source, which, by the way, is permanentpeace.org. Permanentpeace.org is this guy's site. Most people don't know how deeply their own consciousness is connected to the collective fate of the planet, or how they can use a powerful, scientifically tested technology of consciousness to help create world peace on Earth virtually overnight. More than 50 demonstration projects and 23 studies published in leading peer-reviewed journals have shown that this new consciousness-based approach to world peace neutralizes the ethnic, political, and religious tensions in society that give rise to crime, violence, terrorism, and war. The approach has been tested on the local, state, national, and international levels, and it has worked every time, resulting in highly significant drops in negative social trends and improvements in positive trends. Large groups of peace-creating experts practicing these technologies of consciousness together dive deep within themselves to the most fundamental level of mind and matter, which physics calls the unified field. From that level of life, they create a tidal wave of harmony and coherence that can permanently alter society for the better, as the research has confirmed. And this consciousness-based approach is holistic, easy to implement, non-invasive, and cost-effective. It's very, very inexpensive. That is from a physicist. There are that many studies. Why don't we hear about them? That's a great question to ask. I have theories. I have my own theories, but I refrain from giving those. Why don't they talk about it? Don't know. Why isn't this taught in more books? Don't know. But it's proven in many occasions. We've proven it in our own individual lives. So think about that from a larger scale. If it works just on myself, even Goddard's talked about, if you get a bunch of people to try to help manifest something for someone, that's as close as I've heard yet from some of the more mainstream people. So a bunch of people to help one person manifest. Yeah, not quite the way that works. How about a bunch of us try to help manifest a better life for a bunch of us? There's an idea. Ooh, wait a minute. Hang on. Let's get a little outside of ourselves for a moment and realize what I do to my community benefits me as well. Hey, there's a good idea. Let's try that. So it's something to think about from that standpoint. Now, the two Art Bell things that I talked about, I know of one of them, so I'm only going to speak to one of them. I know there's a second. I don't exactly remember what it was, but I know after the second one, he never did it again because it freaked him out. Now, here's one of the things that happened. Now, for those of you who don't know who Art Bell was, he was, I believe, world known, but if not, on the United States, he was syndicated overnight talk show guy for years. Like, he was pretty much the best thing that was on. If you were listening to the radio after 10 p.m. at night until 5 a.m. in the morning, he was a decent show to listen to that just was entertaining, and it just talked about all sorts of crazy stuff. Well, Art Bell, on two occasions, certainly one, I think he did it for the same thing both times, but again, on the first occasion, there was a hurricane, and he got his audience to steer it out of the way of where it was coming into landfall. And it did change course. What freaked him out about it, and this is why he tested it one more time, only cautiously, because he was so concerned and tried to fix this part of the experiment. When it steered off, I think it gained like more power, but if not anything, it just slammed into another city and just annihilated it. And one of the lessons that was kind of taken from that is when it comes to nature and producing giant storms, some of that is energy and nature's way of getting rid of energy. Lightning strikes are the same thing. It's the cloud and the ground releasing its electric charge or grounding itself, as it's said in electrical terms. So when these strikes happen, it's an issue of balancing the electrostatic how much of that's in the air and how much of it's on the ground, and, you know, keeping that in balance. It's a very, you know, all the air moving creates friction, creates static, that creates charge, so that charge got a discharge. It's basically what lightning is. And so that is part of nature, just doing what nature has to do. If you were to say, I don't want lightning to happen, things would get out of control very quickly. Like, you would have an abnormal amount of static electricity in the air. You'd probably walk around with your hair just sticking up everywhere, and if you touched anything, you might get electrocuted, right? It's just so much. So the way these things play out, it's super good, super important, and things to keep in mind. I hope this helps. It is totally meant to just get us thinking about bigger picture, and one, that multiplier effect I've talked about, and trying to even bring more love back into your own life by giving love to a larger group of people can make an enormous difference. Enormous difference. And you're affecting that large group of people. So if you want to make a difference in the world and feel like you're doing something that is making a difference in the world, these types of things can help. When we do it together at the same time, it has immense power. This is the thing I wish more of us can do. So when I find out about more of these meditations, I will continue to share, just because I can get however big my audience is at the time when I get them, then that's what I'm going to push out. And that many people, I'm hoping, maybe hear it or listen or join, right? So that's all we can do. Anyway, stay on Radio Style, going out with a great song by The Tokens. It's called The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the quiet jungle, the lion sleeps tonight.